Thank you so much. I don't speak German. I have no idea what the introduction was about. But you all seem to welcome me, so hopefully this will be really interesting. Thank you so much. Just before I start, I arriving here, and it's incredible to see so many great people that obviously are filling an auditorium to come and listen to, well, me speak, apart from anybody else. But it takes an awful lot of hard work, effort, a lot of things that go on. And from all the guys in Crankcom, I think just a round of applause for all of the incredible work that they've put into it, because I think it's phenomenal. Well done. You've been exceptional. So my name is Chris M.M. Gordon, and I'm CEO of the Irish Social Enterprise Network, and I'm part of the B Corp Ireland movement. Does anybody here know what B Corp is? Oh, excellent, we got one. Oh, good Lord. This is the standard. The speaker opens with everybody put your hand up. The reason why, that's great, you can put it all back down again. It's no one here knows B Corp, which is a really good thing, because I'm going to talk about B Corp and social enterprise, and you won't know if it's right or not, which is amazing. So, ladies and gentlemen, I spoke at an awful lot of events when I was growing up, and an awful lot of organizations, and particularly universities. And one of the most interesting things that I came across was the fact that sort of 8 or 9, 10 years ago, when you walked into a university, for example, people were talking about setting up companies. And all they wanted to do was to set up something that they can line their pockets with profit. They wanted to be able to set up something they can get rich and have the Maseratis, Volkswagen, Audis, or BMWs. But it's changed, and I don't know if you're finding this, but every time I go speak to an awful lot of organizations, it's people who want to do this. They want to put a ding in the universe. They're not just doing something because they want to create a change so that they're able to line their pockets with profits. That's a really good, noble thing, don't get me wrong. But an awful lot of people are doing something different. They want to make an impact in the world, which I think is just incredible. We're starting to see those changes. If you want to make an impact in the world, how do you even start? There's an awful lot of things that are clearly a problem. And I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes it feels like you watch the television and there are tons of things that are an issue. There's tons of things that are a problem. And sometimes we wake up, we've got our family, we do whatever, we've got our colleagues, we go to work, we do our thing, we are part of a group, a social thing, we meet our friends on a Friday or whatever. Life goes on and past us, when in fact, there's an awful lot of things that we see on the television and maybe reading our newspapers and see online that sometimes we don't even quite know where to start. But we know we want to make a difference. Even in Ireland, some of the things that we do, we just got to remind ourselves that if you're involved in any different certain projects, you are not alone. If you feel that way, if you feel like sometimes there are things that are going on that you're not quite part of, just remember, this is my first tip, you are not alone. In Ireland, we voted for a couple of things. One of them was this, which is that we decided to give all of our gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender people an opportunity to have the right to marry. Up the gays, yes, round of applause, which is awesome. It's phenomenal. But it was a very strange thing because it required an awful lot of people to go door to door and ask their neighbors to have the permission that we think should have been given already. There shouldn't have even been a thought process about that. But no, we went to referendum and we knocked on the doors and we tried to see if we could make it happen. Another thing, we got a referendum on the 8th Amendment in Ireland, which is about abortion. A lot of our stuff, regardless of what you think, this passed in Ireland, where we decided to give women the right to control their own bodies and their own lives and not have government interfere with that. And this is passed in our books at the moment, an incredible feat for a country that not 20 years ago was fundamentally Catholic. But there's things that are still there. This is the latest one. This is a Raise the Roof, which happened for our housing crisis in Dublin. And these are people that are looking for houses, and they're students, particularly in this picture. But it's not like homeless people and students and like people who are on the periphery. In that march, there were people who worked for Facebook and Google and a whole host of other companies. We have a housing crisis. But we see all these things. Germany has its own issues. When you walk and you look on the television, there's things that you think you might get involved in. But what are you doing? Are you taking part? Are you being an activist? There's a great phrase that I said. I'm a millennial, by the way. It may not look that way. I was told I looked like Tom Hanks earlier. I am not 70. But I'm a millennial, and I am, to my dying day, with my cold dead hands, I will be a millennial. But there was something that was said about millennials from one of my colleagues. Ours is the generation where the sums just don't add up anymore. So you can't retire at the age of 60 in our minds, because we'll never get to that point where you can live for the next 50 years on a half pay. That's not going to happen for our generation. It's just not going to exist. Ours is the generation where the sums don't work anymore. We can't consume the way that we've been consuming over the past number of years. We just can't. It's just not possible. There's too many things that are at bay. So I get to work with incredible people. Here are some of them. And I wanted to think, today I might be able to tell you some of the stories. These are organizations and people who themselves are changing the world. So I thought it might be interesting to tell you some of them. Now, they are involved in a thing that we are called, which is a social enterprise. So the question is, what is a social enterprise? Now, I know you all know the answer, so I'm going to tell you my version of the answer, and then you'll just have to accept that it might be it. But these are organizations that are set up, and they're not just making profits, right? They're not just making something. These are companies that have a component of doing well and doing good. So by well, I mean organizations that are selling products and services and making profits and putting in their pocket. And then good, organizations that are set up like charities. These are companies that are over there shaking buckets, raising money for a cause, like a children's fund or whatever else. Our social enterprises aren't private companies or charities. They're a mixture of both. They're organizations that are doing well and they're doing good. And they're phenomenal. We call, as a definition, profit-seeking organizations with has a measured social or environmental impact. And it just means that these are organizations that are selling something, and as a result of the profit that they make, they're putting it into something good. Does it make sense? So they might do something like sell coffee, and with every coffee, they make a profit. And with the profit, they can help somebody who might be homeless. The more coffees they sell, the more profits they have, the more homeless people they can assist. Now, sometimes these social enterprises also employ homeless people, and that's an awful lot of my world. So they're on a bit of a spectrum. They're not quite charities, and they're not quite private profit-making entities. These are social enterprises, and they're defined by three things: funding, ownership, and impact. They generally have some core funding, they're generally owned by the community they work for, and they also have some social or environmental impact. So I wanted to tell you some stories about those. This is a remarkable organization called the Ulster Supported Employment Learning, USEL, based in Belfast in Northern Ireland, a place that I used to work as social enterprise and director. And phenomenally, they are an organization that employ people who are socially excluded or marginalized or might not have had a job normally. They are incredible. They set up a job for somebody who might be deaf or blind, who might have a learning difficulty, and they give them an opportunity to do something. And they make stuff. This isn't just an organization that exists. They actually do something incredible. They actually have a tannery as part of one of the many enterprises that they have. And they make something which some of you guys might even organize. This is a Belfast school bag, which is a beautiful piece of leather work that they've been created. And way back when, all school children in Northern Ireland used to have these school bags. And now they're selling these guys as the vintage satchel company, where they sell them for £120 or so. And they're made by people who are in the USEL Ulster Supported Employment and Learning project. People who are involved in reuse and recycle, and they might not have had a job if it hadn't have been for the Ulster Supported Employment Learning. And these things, the bags in particular, they're flying out the door. They're incredible. So this is an organization that we can purchase something for, a school bag for your child, to be able to go to school proper. And then all the profits go back to be able to open a position to help these guys. Social enterprise is phenomenal. It's been able to change the world. It's not just in Northern Ireland. This is from the Republic of Ireland. This is a snapshot taken from our public TV station of one of the matriarchs of social enterprise in Ireland from a program that happens. She set up Eco Mattress Recycling, another thing that Ulster Supported Employment Learning do. Eco Mattress Recycling's job is to take 10% of all landfill, which happens to be mattresses, and takes them from the landfill or before it reaches there and disassembles them, takes all the component parts, makes the metal work all go towards recycled metal, and takes all of the other stuffings that come in a mattress and turns them into insulation. It's not just creating employment for people that might have a job otherwise, but it's also creating an environmental product and doing reuse, recycle, and the circular economy. Phenomenal stuff. It's really, really good. But there are other stories. This is a snapshot taken from a child in care program taken from the BBC. And one of the projects that has been worked on was the huge problem of having children in care. And an incredible project. There's about 80,000 people who are living in foster care. Do you know what I mean? They don't have parents and they get moved from home to home. And it's a terribly sad thing because a guy went to one of the conferences as a social care worker. His name is Dave Linton. And Dave listened as somebody came on stage, a girl in a wheelchair who was also in foster care. And the thing that stood out for Dave was when she said, when she was moving, every time that she moved, all of her stuff was put in a black plastic bag. Just think about this for a moment. For those of you, hopefully no one ever gets to be in this situation, but 80,000 people who are living in care, and one person telling a story, imagine how you might feel. All of their stuff was put into a black plastic bag, just stuck with them. It's the saddest thing in the world. He did something about it. He set up an incredible campaign to try and get bags donated so that everybody might be able to give a bag so that's given directly to kids. Makes sense, right? And it could have been scaled. There was enough bags that were given out. But instead, he started a social enterprise. He went off to China after doing a design here. He made a whole load of items and he brought them all back. And they were called Madlug, madlug.com, Make a Difference luggage. And for every bag that you purchase, one bag goes to a child in care. Because his goal for his social enterprise is that no one should ever have their items moved in a black plastic bag. What a beautiful thing. Round of applause for Dave. So every time you purchase this, madlug.com, by the way, just in case anybody, they do deliver to Germany. Anytime you're thinking about doing this sort of stuff, you have a choice. Because any one of us could buy a rucksack and you can go into any store and you can buy one. My only thing here today is that there's a company out there that is changing lives of people for kids in care in a very, very small but very, very impactful way. And that's how they do it. It's a social enterprise. So you have a choice. You can do anything you want. But our thing is, why don't we purchase a Madlug bag? I actually purchased one from Dave and he emailed me back and it included a note from one of the kids. And I just thought it was worthwhile sharing today. I felt a surge of warmth and compassion. It felt wonderful to know that there are people who invest their time and energy into showing love and respect to others, and that despite knowing nothing about me, you felt I was deserving and worth compassion. What a beautiful thing, huh? Isn't that incredible? Just one last thing, kind of in keeping with the incredible story that we heard earlier, Burkhart. They decided that they would make the bags not in China anymore, but obviously in Ulster-supported employment learning. And now Ulster-supported employment learning make every bag locally in Belfast for all of those kids. So I think it's just a remarkable story that all times back up. I asked you to think about a choice that you might have. And the first thing I was saying was like, you know, we need to do something. And because you're not alone. So my next piece of advice is that, do something. It might be very, very small. It might take something out of your way. But maybe once in your life when you make a purchase, you might considering not just buying local, but buying social. Making that one different choice that might make a difference. Okay, I wanted to screw through a couple of social enterprises that are here. This is the Green Kitchen. It was set up as a cafe in Walkinstown in Dublin. Anybody here know Walkinstown in Dublin? No, you don't. I barely know Walkinstown in Dublin. I live there, and I barely know Walkinstown in Dublin. Anyway, there's a cafe called the Green Kitchen Cafe, and it's in Walkinstown. And it was set up by the Walk charity, and the Walk charity had one goal. It was to employ people who had learning difficulties, mild, moderate, or severe. They had learning difficulties, and they were working with them, and they had the last mile problem. The problem that they were trying to focus on the charity was to get these guys employment. Now, they might be able to get them employment here, there, and the odd cafe, but the one challenge that they had is that they just needed a little bit of extra time. So why not set up a cafe themselves? That's what they did. They set up a social enterprise. A charity owns this company. It's a cafe. And what they do now is they have gardens and a whole host of other things. It became a whole big, huge thing. And they employ people who are socially excluded, marginalized, that wouldn't have had a job normally. And they give them the time. And do you know what they do after these guys are trained and they've got all the time and they're about 6 months in? They fire them. That's terrible. They do fire them, but the whole purpose of this is that they fire them because now they've got a job in another place. They try and get them placed. Why? Because the whole purpose is not to get these guys full-time employment for the rest of their lives in their social enterprise. They need to leave that space free for the next group that they're working with. All they needed was time, and that's what they gave them. This cafe, walk in, no one ever knows any different. It's phenomenal. But actually, they ran out of people in the area who had learning difficulties, mild, moderate, and severe. And now they're working, this is another group that works in the area in one of their social franchise models. It's a community addiction team. It works with people who've got drug addictions or alcohol. They're on cocaine or whatever it is that they're dealing with, and they want to try and get back off. And this organization, charity, does treatment and rehabilitation. It tries to treat them where they're at and get them rehabilitated by reducing their drug use. When they're doing that, they may never had a job. They just need an opportunity to get back in full-time employment when they're trying to manage their own life, because their life can be in chaos. And all they need is somebody who understands that it's okay to have a bad day. So where are you going to do that? It turns out they work in Green Kitchen as well. An opportunity to get all of their barista training, all of the things that they need to get their life in order. Last couple of things. Back in my time in Belfast, I actually got to work with this place. It's actually a secure prison, and it works with 18 to 25-year-olds. It works with people who've, made a mistake. They've done armed robbery or something stupid, and they got caught. And as a result, they spent time in prison. But they've changed the name of it now. It's called Hyde Secure College. Why? Because they believe that somebody who makes a mistake at the age of 18 should never be punished for the rest of their life. And if you are like me, I believe that too. Why are we convincing people that they need to spend for eternity in a situation where they probably have learned an awful lot from? We need to be able to make sure that they're able to do something else. So they set up a cafe inside the prison. Now, this is amazing, right? They thought that they would be like a cafeteria. So all these guys are getting trained up in all their hap stuff with the barista, they're like doing the coffees and all that sort of thing. And they're doing salads. And major chefs, like these incredible chefs, like on TV, because that's where major chefs are, they come in and they start teaching these guys how to do this stuff and like serve the food and all the rest of it, right? Phenomenal. But the brilliant thing is they kind of ran out of people to give all the food. So they would like have a whole load of food and like no one could eat it. Why? It's a prison. It's a prison. So what did they do? They opened the doors. It's the most phenomenal thing. You walk up to the Hyde Bank prison and like you have to go to the prison thing. I hope none of you are particularly in prisons, but if you are, this is amazing. So you go to the door and then you have this like little book that you sign in, which is like to get, and then the door, like the door opens and you walk past all the cells and then you get into the courtyard and then you just sit down and a prisoner serves you food. It's phenomenal. It's awesome. But why? Because this is an opportunity for these guys to be able to do it. Now, very strange, it's in a place beside a healthcare facility. And the healthcare facility, doctors and nurses all come down every day. And they go through they all go through the prison, they go down through the cells, they go in, they do all the stuff, and they eat the food in the cafe. Because, it's secure. Like if you're going, not that eating in a cafe is a particular problem in most places, but like if you're going to start a row, this is probably not the place to do it. Do you know what I mean? So like it's a pretty safe cafe to do it in. Which leads on to my last thing, which is that, for God's sake, while we think that sometimes the world is too much and sometimes we need to do something, don't just pick something that you want to do. Start. When you decide that you think that you've got a way of being able to interact with the world in a positive way, make sure that you impact and start. We've got a last one or two stories. Do you like stories? We're good? We're okay? We like stories? This is from an amazing company, which I think you all know. Has anybody here eaten Ben & Jerry's before? Are we good? Excellent. Oh, good Lord. Okay. Of course we have. Why did I ask a silly You might not know about Ben & Jerry's. If you're doing business like our friends in WHU, you're going to find out an awful lot of like Ben & Jerry's. But they were set up not just to be a company that's best in the world, but best for the world. Now, they've got an awful lot of things they do. No GMOs, brownies, fair trade, carry dairy, all that sort of stuff. However, one of the things that I wanted to point out was we're a certified B Corp. It's a mark or a standard, a certification that they have self-assigned themselves to. because their free cone day is one of the examples that they have. They've got a social and environmental impact. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, you missed the free cone day for this year, but keep it in the diary for next year. It's all good. Why do they do that? Because they give a free cone day. Because every year there is people in this world who might not have ever tasted Ben & Jerry's ice cream. And even though they're owned by Unilever, and it's a really stupid decision to give away your product free, it turns out it's brilliant. Because their job every year is to give the gift of Ben & Jerry's ice cream to at least one person. So they're a B Corp, a Be the Change Corp. It's a set of impact assessments on governance, workers, community environment, and impact business models that private trading companies are signing up to. These are companies that don't want to be just the best in the world, but best for the world. Best for the world. How phenomenal is that? And they work with this company. It's called Grayston Bakery. Now, a couple of years ago, the owner of the Grayston Bakery decided that he would work and meet at a conference with the heads of Ben & Jerry. Ben and/or Jerry. I'm not even quite sure. And these guys were based in Yonkers, and they were baking cakes and biscuits. Phenomenal. They have a hiring policy, and the hiring policy is if you show up to work, you get a job. I don't care where you come from. If you've got a history, if you're an ex-offender, doesn't matter. We take you where you're at now. You show up to work every day, we want to take you. They did something. They decided that they were going to get involved in the supply chain of Ben & Jerry's. So what were they going to do? They decided to make something. And when they had that conversation, they realized you can't just be an organization. You have to do something. So for the right quality, time, value, price, we say you need your product. You better deliver it, ladies and gentlemen. Well, they did. And for the past number of years, Grayston Bakery, a social enterprise with a hiring policy for taking anybody where they're at, takes in product from this company, Grayston Bakery, takes in to Ben & Jerry's in their supply chain. And they make it a phenomenal thing. They make this brown chocolate fudge. Has anybody here eaten this? Hands up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can feel good about yourself for once when you finish the bottom of one of these, because the brownies come from Grayston Bakery, a social enterprise. And it's a choice. You might not have known that when you did that. But the products and the ingredients that are in here are because Ben & Jerry's decided that they were going to set up as a B Corp, and they were going to analyze all of the stuff in their supply chain. Some of the other B Corps in the world, Ben & Jerry's, Cascade, is that German? Is that Cascade German? German engineering? Seventh Generation and a whole host of other Kickstarters, Nativa. And essentially these companies are doing a self-assessment for the things that they're doing. So all I would advise for you is to maybe set that up. Last pieces of advice. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do watch the TV and you think that you want to get involved in something, my number one piece of advice, you are not alone. Number two, choose something. And number three, start. And that might mean now. There's a whole host of people that are in this room that are clearly combined by the fact that they've got a shared vision in WestVisions, and I just think that's fantastic. One of the projects that I went to was in WHU, and I'm glad to say, thankfully, I'm here with the WHU guys that are here today. Even if you wanted to continue on the next one, on 29th and 30th of March next year, Sensibility are going to have their conference. Again, there's me. And next year, they're going to have a phenomenal lineup in the idea of sustainability and getting people in the supply chain. That's one thing you might be able to do. You can get on with the Social Enterprise Directory Network, which is SendEV, which is here based in Germany. And the last thing you can do, if you are for a private profit company and you want to make a difference in your own company, why not sign to the beimpactassessment.net? It is a free assessment that you can take for your company. That means, are you best for the world, not best in the world? And it brings you through an entire process to see if you've got great people in your supply chain. What difference can you make? Not just in your daily life, but purchasing a Madlug, or maybe doing something like getting your company to assess all these triple bottom line audits. Somebody said, it was a joke that came back up recently, and it was when the CEO and the COO came together, and they were talking about their workforce, and they said, what if we do all these great things for all of our staff, like purchasing more socially, working with a company like Madlug or Usil? What if we train them all and all of our staff and they leave? And the CEO said, what if we don't train our staff and they stay? If you want to be one of the companies that is leading the change in the world, involved in social enterprise or part of these companies like B Corp, where every day your values are the things that drive you, I think it'd be worthwhile seeing how well you would be for the world. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for all of your time and effort. Please remember, you are not alone. Choose something and start. And never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever have. Thank you very much.